It happened again, so we made a video about Colbert. We're making one about Jimmy Kimmel. And before you say anything like, but you said you were a huge Colbert fan, you just could do this for everybody? I thought this was a channel about comic book movies. Well, guess what? Something I learned 2 minutes ago. Jimmy Kimmel did the voice of Batman in the Teen Titans Go to the Movies movie, which I saw in theaters and I did not know that he did the voice for. He must have like 3 lines. I scrubbed through the whole movie. You can barely tell it's him, but he is in there. He is one of the Batmans. It's a fun little trivia thing for people. If you get nothing from this video, if you want to stump people with like actors who have or have not played Batman, this will get you. I'm going to read the other actors that played characters in this movie real quick because I think it's interesting. Nicolas Cage was Superman. That I think we all know. The Wonder Woman in this movie played by Halsey. The Atom was Patton Oswalt. Supergirl was Meredith Salinger. And then to me, the one that really shocked me, Green Lantern in that movie is played by Lil Yachty, who we all know and love from that song at the end of the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and also he did the theme song for the new Saved by the Bell reboot. I assume he's done other things. But okay, so that's Jimmy Kimmel. Also, he was in The Boss Baby. He's a guy. He does stuff. I started my Colbert video by saying I love Stephen Colbert. He's like one of my favorite entertainers. It's been a joy of my lifetime to be able to watch him go from Daily Show to Colbert Report to his own talk show and whatever. And maybe not everything he does is good, but I think it's all interesting. Is that true of Jimmy Kimmel? No. I don't really watch the Jimmy Kimmel show that much. Not to say that I don't think it's good, but like it's just not my main one. You know, when I was 12, I watched The Man Show because there were boobs in it and stuff. So I from there, I guess I kind of liked him. But besides that, I'm not a humongous Jimmy Kimmel fan. I will say the Matt Damon stuff back when he was doing that was so funny. And all of his little post-Oscar skits like the Handsome Man's Club, super funny. I still think about them to this day. I also like Guillermo. Like I watched the bit where they interviewed people after the Emmys and drank tequila. So like, listen, the Jimmy Kimmel show, it's not my favorite show. He's not my favorite entertainer, but it's a fine show. And to some extent, I think all the late night shows are pretty much the same. Colbert, Kimmel, Myers, Fallon, I guess, but definitely those other 3. And then like Daily Show. I feel like what you end up doing if you're me is you watch a couple of them and you hear the same couple of jokes, but it's like whichever one you like the most, you watch theirs and listen to their jokes. The Stephen Colbert Show, which is called The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, that was canceled by CBS, surprisingly, kind of abruptly, after Stephen Colbert made some comments about how CBS acquiescing to Trump with a lawsuit and like settling a lawsuit. He called it a bribe, and then CBS canceled The Late Show, which is surprising because it's like a longer show than Stephen Colbert. Dave Letterman used to host this show, so like they could have fired Colbert, but instead they canceled it, and it did seem like CBS was acquiescing to Trump. Now, there were people in my comments for that video, and I would say most of you, by the way, most of the people in my comments are cool. I mean, this is not one of those videos where I complain about everybody in the comments. There were some people in the comments that were like, well, it was losing lots of money and it was a big financial problem. So that's why they ended the show. This is just kind of a convenient way for them to do it. That is a world that could exist. And for me, the way that I would know if it's like, hey, was this a political thing or was this purely a business decision, is if this happened to the other late night shows and it wasn't a business decision. Like it had nothing to do with business. It was just politics. And that's what we see here. Now people will say politics is business. It's all part of the same ecosystem. We'll get to why I think that's not good, but I think it's important to show the difference between the Colbert one, which gave CBS that deniability with like, no, this is a business decision. That's all this is. And this one, which is fully a business decision, but like motivated specifically by political actors. And now, because I bet a lot of you are confused, what's the Jimmy Kimmel thing? We're X amount of minutes into this video, and you've mostly talked about Teen Titans Go to the Movies, the cast of that, which also included, let's find another one. It's like an interesting one. This can't be the Greg Davies, right? There's gotta be like 2 Greg Davieses out there. Wait, that's that Greg Davies? The one from Taskmaster is Balloon Man and the Teen Titans Go to them. See, it's the gift that keeps on giving, this weird movie. I had no idea. And like, I love Taskmaster. Yeah, I had no idea. So this is even more weird trivia. But okay, this is the Jimmy Kimmel situation. And we gotta go back a couple days. The first thing that happened is last week, Charlie Kirk, a right-wing activist and public debate guy, was shot and killed at a college at like a talk or some sort of event. There was a big manhunt for the guy that did it or whatever that was. They found the person pretty quickly, not because they like found him, but he turned himself in. And there was a little while where no one really knew what the deal with this guy was. And I will say, as of now, we don't fully know the deal with this guy. Like, it's one of those situations where like he's alive, so I assume eventually we'll find out. But like, as always happens with this stuff, there was a bunch of time where people were like, oh, he posted this thing. That means he's actually anti-Trump. But he posted this thing. That means he's pro-Trump. But his family's this. And that means he's probably, and like trying to ascribe some meaning to it. And I will say, I understand the impulse to do this on like a human level. You want to ascribe meaning to like something tragic happens, someone dies, and you want to be like, well, why did this happen? Maybe you want people to blame, but maybe you just want to understand the climate, and you want to say, oh, it's because of this or because of that. So like, I understand why people look at an event like this and try to figure out the story behind it. I think it's generally kind of pointless early on, and also the thing that you learn when you actually do look into the political views of the people that do these assassinations is frequently an incoherent mess of like believing a bunch of things and a bunch of other things. And like, so it usually doesn't actually lead to anything productive, but you know, it's something people do is you got to figure out what their deal is. So Jimmy Kimmel on Monday does his show and talks about Donald Trump in his monologue. And he talks specifically, and he says that there's this one phrase that's been used by everybody, and we will just, you know what? We'll just play it right here so you can see. This is the clip from the Jimmy Kimmel show that everybody got mad about.
We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. There's demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
So that is what he said. But also for people who are like, hey, why wouldn't he say something, you know, more kind and like about how this is a senseless act of violence or whatever? He did that the week before. Like once the news broke, that was what he talked about. And it was like exactly what I would say conservatives want him to say. And I'm not saying that's why he said it, but I am saying there's this version of the story where it's like, this is the only thing he said. The only comment he made about this was like making fun of Donald Trump. But in reality, like he already said the thing you want him to have said. Also, to point out in that clip that we just saw, and I saw a lot of the different late night show hosts talk about this, it's a weird answer Trump gives. Like the ballroom thing, he's been talking about this ballroom like he was running to be president of Beauty and the Beast. He loves the ballroom. He's made, hasn't even had a ballroom for 150 years. A, like it's weird that he cares about it this much. B, I hear a lot of things in America about like, oh, in the other countries we do this and we have, you know, this healthcare, drive on this side of the road, whatever. There are a lot of complaints about like in America, we don't have enough public transit system or like our healthcare system is a mess. It's usually not in the top 1 million that we don't have a big enough ballroom next to the White House. So like, it's weird that this is this high up on anybody's radar, let alone the president's. And it's very weird that he was asked about the Charlie Kirk thing and he immediately pivoted to ballroom stuff. So then today, Wednesday, the day that I recorded this, Jimmy Kimmel's show is pulled from the air. It is indefinitely postponed or put on hiatus or something. I don't believe as of right now he is fully fired. I would not be surprised if he gets fired in the near future or he quits. It's a weird decision to make because if like you're Jimmy Kimmel, if I'm Jimmy Kimmel at this point and like ABC does this to me, I'm done. I'm not working for them anymore because like you guys gotta look out for me and you're not doing that. But I understand the idea that like, well, he does have a staff, people that work for him, and it is a big show. It's bigger than him. So like for that reason, I understand if he stuck around. But as of now, show's put on indefinite hiatus. Apparently on Friday, they're going to air like a tribute to Charlie Kirk or something in place of the Jimmy Kimmel show, which is, it feels weird. So cause and effect. He makes these jokes about Trump and Charlie Kirk. People take it really seriously. They start calling in to their, you know, ABC and the affiliates and like, you got to pull this off the air. Then they pull Jimmy Kimmel. Their ABC eventually fires Jimmy Kimmel, whatever. That would be a thing that could happen. There's not a lot of evidence that this did happen. What it seems like happened is the FCC chair was on like a podcast or something. And he basically said like, ABC, they got to watch out. They shouldn't be doing this. They shouldn't have Jimmy Kimmel saying this stuff. And the people who really should be worried are the affiliates, people that carry the ABC and the Jimmy Kimmel show. They're the ones that should make a big deal over this. And then maybe something will change. And Trump has had it out for all of the late night hosts, mostly the Kimmel and Colbert, and then I guess Seth Meyers. I'm sure he throws Fallon in here as like, because Fallon also makes fun of Trump. I think if one of them does stick around, it's Jimmy Fallon, because he is the most agreeable for Trump. And I mean, you know, I got nothing to say about Jimmy Fallon. He sold that. He did the weird NFT video. But then, okay, so there's this company called Nexstar. Now, I, like you, had never heard of them before. Much like I, like you, had no idea that Jimmy Kimmel was Batman and Teen Titans Go to the Movies before, even though we did see that movie. And if you didn't, it's a funny movie. I think there's some really good stuff in that movie that, like, holds up for fans of comics. Kids, like, I think kids would like it because it's got all the silly Teen Titans Go to the Movie stuff. But also, like, there's jokes that are just for adults and, like, really well executed jokes for adults in that movie. So, like, I think it's pretty good. But anyway, Nexstar is what you call an affiliate. And for people who are like, hey, what's an affiliate? Like me a couple of minutes ago. And I kind of knew what it was, but like I wasn't sure. So these are the companies that take ABC's broadcast, like they take the stuff ABC makes and they distribute it to smaller networks. So they're like independent from like ABC, but they put the ABC content out there. They put the ads on there. It's good for both of them. There's a bunch of companies that do this. I believe Sinclair is like one of the bigger ones. John Oliver's talked about them a lot because they're weird and bad. Listen, I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how affiliates are. I don't have like a communications degree, but I know they're a middleman between you and ABC, and like in a good way, not in like a crappy way, in like a way that they help ABC and all the companies get their stuff out there. So Nexstar is the company that said, we are not going to show the Jimmy Kimmel show. And they did this today right after Brendan Carr, the FCC chair, was on a podcast. I don't know why these people go on podcasts. None of them call us to go on Mostly Nitpicking. We wouldn't let them, but they don't ask. And I'm like, what? Where are the other ones? I don't want to talk to them. I mean, I'd be interested to talk to these people just to like figure out what their deal is. It wouldn't really be good podcast content for me. It's probably not good podcast content for these guys either, but like whatever. So this guy said like the affiliates should make this difficult for ABC, and one of them did. Now this Nexstar company, I know nothing about them except the new thing I know, besides that they were an affiliate and they did what the Trump administration wanted them to, is they are also trying to do a merger. So the FCC can do a couple things, like they can fine you, they can pull a broadcast license, but they also have control over mergers. They get to say, like, you are able to merge, these two companies are able to merge. Also, like, it's bad just generally for us that all these mergers happen. There was like 1 second where we were like, oh, it's kind of cool that the X-Men could be in the Avengers movies now. But then immediately after that, it was like, no, it's bad. The whole thing's bad. That's just, there's going to be like one company, and it's bad because it's bad for competition, which like if you care about capitalism and like you think it's a system that can work, you would want more competition instead of just one company owning all the stuff. Anyway, that's not the point. The mergers are bad for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons they're bad is because they're able to consolidate. Like, they're good for the company because, you know, it gets rid of competition. But to do a merger like this, you have to go through the FCC. So they have to okay it. That was the whole deal with the CBS thing. CBS wanted to do a merger with another company who it's been like a month and a half, so I already forgot. I guess Skydance was merging with Paramount. It certainly seems like Nexstar is in this situation where it needs the Trump administration to do something for it, something that the Trump administration could easily make very difficult. And then they saw the Trump administration saying, hey, the affiliates need to do something for us. And they didn't, the Trump administration didn't say the affiliates, if they don't do it, they won't be able to do their merger. But Nexstar heard what the Trump administration was saying. It seems like it was like, ooh, if we're the ones who do this and get this going, we'll look like heroes and our merger will go through. That's what it feels like. Again, like, because this wasn't a huge deal. What Jimmy Kimmel said was, I would say, not that controversial. There's other people saying things that are way more controversial about the Charlie Kirk situation, and none of them are on late night TV. But like, I'm sure there's people that are in the public eye that people are complaining about. But like, I don't know, Jimmy Kimmel doesn't feel like he's very high on the list. It does feel like Donald Trump just hates late night TV show hosts because he's a very silly person and he's easy to make fun of. And like, he has incredibly thin skin. So every time they make fun of him, he takes it way too personally. Also, and I mentioned before, I host a podcast called Mostly Nitpicking. I have seen a lot of people say that what Jimmy Kimmel said is factually wrong, and that's why it's bad that he said it. It shouldn't matter. You're allowed to be wrong, especially if you're Jimmy Kimmel. Like, if you're the news, you can be wrong, and you could like print a retraction or something. Like, there's ways that people who are wrong on the news get to like make an about face. For instance, when that guy on Fox News or Fox and Friends or whatever, said you could kill all homeless people. That's a good idea. A couple days later, he went on the show and said it's not a good idea. We shouldn't do it. So like sometimes that's how this goes. But I just want to point out, like, the logic of the statement he made holds up. Here's what Jimmy Kimmel says again, just the beginning part of the joke.
New lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Because that's the part that people were upset about, because you can read that sentence and kind of hear what I think would be like the next beat in it. What that sentence does not say is the kid who murdered Charlie Kirk is MAGA. People, like I just saw, Megyn Kelly, were tweeting that is what Jimmy Kimmel said. That's not what he said. He said what I would argue is true. The MAGA gang tried to characterize the kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. That doesn't mean he's one of them or not one of them. That just means without even knowing who that person is, they went, we gotta make sure he's not one of us. I would say you could make the case that this happens exactly the same way every single time. Like I said in the beginning, like there's this little window where even though it does not matter why the person did what they did, both sides kind of try to make it the other side's problem. And I think, like, to be fair to the Democrats, they're the one that's trying to get rid of guns. Guns are the problem. I mean, it would have been hard for him to do this without the gun. Much harder. So, you know, I think that's one way to make things better. And I think the Democratic Party, even though not nearly enough, talks about wanting to do this, because this is what it seems like Megyn Kelly heard. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize the kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, which he was, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. But that statement does not say that he was one of them or was not one of them. It just says that they were like, he's not one of our guys. And 100% true. There was nobody like in the conservative MAGA side that was like, I think this was one of our guys. This was probably one of us. Everybody was like, no, it's probably not him. And like when you're watching this video, I'm sure more stuff will have come out. So we'll have a better picture of what this guy believed. Again, it doesn't really matter. But for the purpose of like what Jimmy Kimmel said, it's not what it's being characterized as. And I think logically you can kind of see what I mean. The reason I think this is important is because like there is no world, at least as far as I can, because like Jimmy Kimmel doesn't just go up there and riff, right? Like Jimmy Kimmel has writers and a teleprompter, and they come up with this monologue, and they all do, right? Like all of these people write the monologue ahead of time. There's no way that he would write in the monologue something very inflammatory, like the person who shot Charlie Kirk was MAGA, and like the writers and like maybe even the lawyers wouldn't go, we can't say that. We shouldn't say that because that will get us in trouble. Like I think they constructed a very tight sentence. Again, the sentence is not about what the person is. It's about what the Republicans were trying to frame the person as, regardless of what they are or are not. So that's like the whole situation, basically. That's why it got pulled. That's why like the whole everything's bad. It's very similar to the Colbert situation, except there's no like cancellation. It's not cancellation because it's not ABC saying we're losing money on this show, because we don't know if they're losing money on this show. The Colbert show, I think you can make the case, seems way more expensive than the Kimmel show. And if you're like, why? There's a lot of reasons. One of them is Colbert hosts it in the middle of Times Square, basically. Like that is one of the most expensive places to do anything in the United States. And like he hosts this show there. Jimmy Kimmel's one of the shows from the West Coast. And like, I don't have the financials to back this up, but like, I can't imagine it's not cheaper to do this like near the studio than to do it in the middle of Manhattan. There's a bunch of other things that could make this show cheaper. I think Jimmy Kimmel probably just commands less budget than Stephen Colbert, because Stephen Colbert is more of a high profile guy. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if we find out the show was profitable for ABC. The other thing we didn't really talk about in the Stephen Colbert one is like these shows, if you ever watch them, I think they're quite funny sometimes. I do like Seth Meyers. I'm a Jackal. I got my Jackal mug. I should have it out, but I don't. But like, even if you take away the entertainment value of them, it's just like fun shows. They are also valuable for the networks to, you know, like ABC, who owns Kimmel's show and also is part of Disney and Marvel and all that. They're really good at trotting out all the Marvel stars for a big interview. Usually they get everybody together, all sitting out. And they do this for a lot of their shows, but like this is a part of the Disney press tour. Otherwise, they buy commercials. Like they would just pay money to put a commercial in the Super Bowl. With this, they get to have all these videos like, oh, look at all the Thunderbolts having fun, talking to each other, and like, here's a funny quote. And that's like good publicity for the company. again, it's bad that all these companies work together and they're all consolidated, but like that could be a reason why even if a show like this is losing some money, it is still valuable to a network. Like, we're taking some time to get to it, because the real problem, and the reason this one's more interesting, because people will say, and I have seen people say this, I'm pretty sure I saw the Barstool guy, whatever the hell that guy's name is, say this, that like, well, this is a consequence, right? There's differences between freedom of speech and freedom from consequences. And this is something that is a consequence of what Jimmy Kimmel said. So you can say, like, he should be able to say it and stuff, but you can also say his parent company should be able to fire him for saying something that like is going to be bad for their company. That is what you will hear people say. And I think that comes up a lot when people talk about like cancel culture and woke stuff. It's this idea that like if someone says something really bad, they could get fired, and like that's a consequence of their speech. But like, while it is a free speech issue, it is not a like freedom of speech First Amendment issue. The only way it would be a freedom of speech First Amendment issue is if the government got involved. If, say, a member of the administration went out and said the affiliate should do this, and also like made what seemed to be a veiled threat at like, there's other things that we might do, but this is the easy way, there's also the hard way, which is something that like the kingpin would say, not the kind of thing you would want to hear coming from government, even though now in the shows he's in government, so there you go. But like, that's the one thing that we don't do in this country. And I think America's not perfect. Like I said, there's a lot of guns, healthcare's bad, and we don't have enough trains. But one thing we got that's cool is you could say whatever you want and the government's not going to yell at you. That's like one of the rules. It's the first rule of the country. Other countries don't all have this. And not even just like, you know, North Korea doesn't have freedom of speech, but like, if you look at how other countries, you know, like the UK handle freedom of speech, like America, one of the cool things about us is you can say whatever you want. But the idea that this FCC guy, whatever his name is, who cares, Carr, is gonna go on TV or a podcast. Does the FCC chair have time for podcasts? Doesn't he have to like do stuff like get broadband places or put satellites up, whatever his job is, make sure people do those things? I guess he has time for a podcast. So the fact that he goes on podcasts and says, this is what the administration wants the affiliates to do, and there's easy way and a hard way, so, you know, just take the easy way. That is the one thing we don't do in America. At least we've never done it before, because the Constitution says we don't do it, because we're not North Korea. I think the other thing that's really screwy is every time one of these happens, or every time someone says something that's mean to him on like the late night shows or whatever, Donald Trump, the president, goes on like social media and says, these guys are the worst, they're bad, and they should be all canceled because their ratings are bad and they're not funny and stuff. Like, that alone, I feel like you could make the case that that is a First Amendment issue. But like, that's that kind of weird nebulous Trumpy stuff that it's really hard, I feel like, for people to get their head around. Whereas the FCC chair going on and telling the broadcasters what content to put onto their networks because of whether it's mean to the president or not, or just anything, for any reason, that is like a plain textbook example of don't do this. We don't do this in America because it's stupid. It's stupid to do that. You don't want a country where nobody can criticize the president. I'll also say, people always bring up like, why are these late night show hosts so obsessed with Trump? First of all, it's because he's a really silly guy and he does silly things, but also B, because of this. Because he also will like yell at him on the internet, and then the FCC makes them take the show down. Like, how would you not be obsessed with that guy? So yeah, listen, I talked about Teen Titans a lot. We learned a lot about Teen Titans Go to the Movies. We also learned some things about this Jimmy Kimmel situation. In conclusion, it's bad. It's bad that they're doing this. I hope they don't do this to Seth Meyers. They probably won't do it to Jimmy Fallon. And people are saying, should we boycott Disney? You know, cancel your subscription and stuff. I think there's a difference between canceling your subscription and like a boycott. I think a boycott needs to be an action that's taken by a group intentionally at a specific time to show a company that like they mean business, whatever. So like, if that comes up, then good. I also think like there's still time for ABC to change their mind on this. And you'll hear people say like ABC, this is in their financial interest now, so like why would they bring him back? And it could be in their financial interest to be cool. I could see a world where like ABC hears about this and the affiliates start pulling Jimmy Kimmel, and everybody's like, well, that's stupid, we're not going to do that. And then Jimmy Kimmel ratings get better because everybody's watching him, because now it's all anybody's talking about. So there is like a financial incentive for these companies to like do the cool thing. And there's also like the idea that you do what the administration wants when you're not like actively being fined or something. It's a classic phrase. It comes from everywhere, but I remember it most because I'm me from the Captain America movie. They're in the car, and Peggy says,
Did you have something against running away?
You start running, they'll never let you stop. You stand up, you push back. Can't say no forever, right?
because that's what happens. All these companies that just do whatever Trump wants, he just asks more of them. It's not, you can't win by doing that. You can maybe win by fighting back and being cool. And then also you don't have to do what they say. And like, that's the best option. And I hope that NBC, the last one of these big three, when faced with a situation like that, you know, stands up, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's not good. And it's another reason, I've seen a lot of people do this, so I'm going to do it now, why independent media is cool and good, and a good and cool thing that you should check out if you like supporting independent media, independent creators, is Nebula. Nebula is a independent subscription streaming service that I and a bunch of my YouTube friends helped to create. One thing that I've heard a lot of people saying now about YouTube is that there's lots of AI and lots of AI stuff. No AI on Nebula. It's all videos made by human beings to be watched by other human beings. So that is another reason. That's something I haven't usually said before, but it's something I feel like I should say, because like, man, there's just too much AI everywhere and it stinks. So it's nice to know, I think, that like you're not going to get AI on Nebula. I put all my videos, my Nando V Movies videos and my Nando Cut videos up early. So if you want to see my next video now, which is about the Serpent Society in the MCU and why that's kind of a mess, you can watch that early, or you can wait until it comes onto YouTube in like, I don't know, like couple weeks, a month or whatever. Like, who wants to wait? It's fun to watch stuff now. This video was early on Nebula. You can watch it, you know, maybe a couple hours early, but still, all the videos early, ad-free. You can download them on your phone, so that's nice. You don't have to worry about like taking up all the data. But then the most exciting thing right now is our production of Nebula originals. So these are like movies, short films, plays, documentaries. These are all created by Nebula. So these are our people. These all tend to be projects the creators are really passionate about. And we're able to put out like some really cool stuff. Patrick Willems has a short film coming out very soon that they just put a teaser out for called The Dinner Plan, which like, it's not out yet, but like I've talked to Patrick about it. It's very fun. I don't want to just like tell you everything about it, but like it's cool. And it has people you definitely recognize, like John Hodgman's in it, Zach Cherry is in it. And then we have another show coming out called Subliminal, which Patrick directed an episode of, which I wrote an episode of. It is an anthology. You will see so much stuff for it in the future. When the trailer is out, I will be sharing it constantly. But if you want to, A, see all our videos early, get access to all of that, and B, help us creators make all this cool stuff that we could not make by ourselves, give Nebula a look, because it's great. And it is a steal at $60 a year or $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for $36. That's just $3 a month. It is an incredible deal. Go check it out now. But yeah, so we'll talk about Peacemaker and Doctor Doom and all the rest of that stuff. But I just wanted to do a video today about this because I talked about it Colbert, and also like I think it's worse now. It got worse. But you know, until next time, stay safe, everybody. I'll see you around.